If you're struggling with slow growth, small buds, or plant problems, environment might be your issue. Let's fix that. But before we do, today's video is brought to you by Real Growers Recharge. If you want stronger, healthier plants, if you want bigger roots for better fruits, you gotta check out Real Growers Recharge. It's like an instant compost tea that holds more nutrients at your root zone, breaks those nutrients down, and makes them more plant available, getting more of your nutrients into your plants. Find out more about Recharge over at realgrowers.com. And while you're there, use coupon code Scotty420 to get 20% off your first order. Now let's get back to the show. Come on, Hassie. I sound like a broken record, but we're going to talk about environment today.
I was going to say, this is one of the things that you really hammered home for me when I first started working with you.
Yes, I've been doing this for a while, and it's pretty frustrating when people tell you all about the new lights they got, or the 12-bottle nutrient system, or even the $400 box of seeds that they got, and they're going to put them in an 85-degree garage or something like that. The environment is where you want to start.
Okay, and actually, you know what? Let's talk about that first.
Sure.
Why is it that environment gets ignored and seeds and nutrients and lights are the things that people brag about or spend so much time focused on?
All right, I'm going to go deep here, all right?
Okay.
You know how we're very visual people? We lead with our eyes.
Oh, yeah.
You can't really see hot temperatures, right? You can't see if your humidity is a little bit out of check.
I mean, you could get a controller 69 unit from AC Infinity, and then you can see it.
You could see that, right?
Yeah.
It's boring to show off on social media, though. I want to show off my new pack of seeds or my big light, man.
Okay, yeah. If I'm showing something off on social media, I'm definitely going to go with the seeds, the light, not take a picture of the humidity.
Yeah. Temperature and humidity are absolutely crucial. That's why I talk about them so much. Your terpenes and cannabinoids are in those little trichome heads. When it gets too hot, they volatilize off. Those things go from being inside the trichome to being inside the air. Maybe you smell them up your nose a little bit, but it's not the medicine that you're not getting medicated by that. So we want to keep them on the plant material. We want to keep that those terpenes and cannabinoids inside the trichomes. I was just going to say, to do that, can't be too hot and it can't be too humid.
So I can totally see why, especially when it's close to harvest time, temperature and humidity, trying to keep those terpenes from volatilizing off.
Yep.
Matters then, but it matters throughout the whole life cycle.
Damn, you're becoming a good grower. Absolutely, you're right, man. We have to breathe. The plants have to breathe. Everything has to. We talk about how the plant takes moisture up from the roots, then opens those stomata up, and through osmotic pressure, it pulls it out, and that's where it gets all its nutrients and its moisture from, and that's how it builds itself. We have to have those stomata open so that they can be just flowing, water flowing up the plant, delivering nutrient, delivering carbon and oxygen, everything it takes to build this plant material, and out the stomata. So to do that, we can't have it be, first off, athletes don't want to work when it's cold, so everything slows down when it's cold. And then if it's way too humid, or if it's not humid enough, the plant will close those stomata up. It'll say, hey, man, I can't start flowing nutrients and water through, and just open up the stomata. I'm in a bad situation here. I need to hold on to everything I got. You want that plant just in the perfect zone where it is just eating and drinking and not worry about it. I got plenty more. Don't worry.
Yeah, you mentioned athletes. I remember when you first explained it to me.
Yeah.
You said, hey, if you want optimal performance, provide an optimal environment.
Yep. And how about the people, this is from way back in the day, but they would put on those sweatsuits, those suits that, they wouldn't let your pores breathe. And what you always hear about, somebody passed out and died in one of those, or you know what I mean? Like, you have to breathe, whether it's your skin and your body or a plant, they have to breathe.
Okay, so real quick, I know there's VPD charts. You can look up what the optimal environment is. Temperature, humidity.
Sure.
We mentioned at the end of right before harvest, we want it to be a specific place. Does it change throughout the plant's life cycle? What's the optimal temp and humidity?
It does. It does. You want it nice and warm and humid in the beginning when they're in the cloning stage or just developing their roots. So they're going to have to do some breathing out of the leaves. And then as they go into veg, you're still nice tropical. Think about summer. And then as they go down, they get a little bit lower in temperature and humidity. And then as you go down in the flower, it's a little bit lower in temperature and humidity as well. And a VPD chart is your friend. I'm here to tell you about them. I'm not here to tell you specific VPD at every range. At every stage of growth, take a look at these. It'll make sense. Just the general idea is, though, while you're getting these big fat buds, you want to lower the humidity down a little bit to avoid bud molds and things like that.
Okay, speaking of bud molds, let's talk about air circulation, because I think that that's something that people also, I mean, nobody takes pictures of the new little oscillating fan and posts that on Facebook either.
They're like $80 now, man. I show off my new fans when I get them, you know?
Okay, why is a fan so important, and how should I be using that ventilation in my grow?
Well, we're talking about an oscillating fan here?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk about that first. Oscillating fans are great. You want to move the air. First off, you've got CO2 in that air. You want, even if you're not enriching with CO2, you still got a little bit of CO2 in there. You want that moving all around. You want that getting blown all around the stomatas. Also, if you've got any kind of bugs starting up, you got one or two bugs that showed up there, you want them saying, dude, this is a terrible place to hang out, man. There's 30 mile, and it's like my backyard sometimes, man. It's great. Then there's 40 mile an hour winds that come through. You're like, dude. That's kind of what happened with the bugs. If you make it a place where they go, I don't want to make a nest here. I don't want to hang out here. It's hard to even hold on. I got a fan blowing on me every 8 seconds. That's going to make it so the bugs don't take hold. That's really a big thing what we're trying to do. We're trying to even out the amount of, even out the temperature and humidity, I'll say, so that we don't have these little stagnant points. And then we want to just make it uncomfortable for bugs or pests or pathogens to, start nesting there or laying their eggs there or planting their hyphae there.
What about things like bud mold and stuff like that? Isn't the air circulation, doesn't it help prevent that as well?
It's the same thing. If you leave an area stagnant where there's no air blowing over it, it makes this ideal environment to, whether it's to, for bugs to lay eggs or for molds or mildews to set up shop. It's the same thing, man. If you give it an opportunity. If we're talking about fans, I don't want to ignore the intake and exhaust fans. Those are things like on my tent, I've got one, and it's just hooked up when the temperature gets too high or humidity gets too high. Shout out to that AC Infinity controller. But it just pulls air from my lung room into the tent, and really what it's doing is pulling the moist air out of the tent. Mm-hmm. But that's a huge thing as well. That's a intake or an exhaust fan, but huge part of the solution.
And that usually, you've got the monitor, the AC Infinity controller. It's checking what the temp and humidity is. Gets too hot, and it kicks on and starts sucking that hot, moist air out and pulling in some fresh air from your lung room. And
it's the same thing if it's a bug or any kind of pathogen, a mold or a mildew, you're looking for that perfect environment. If every 20 minutes that environment is changing from perfect to really lousy, and then you got to go over and do it again and again, no, I'm not. It's not the ideal environment for mold or mildews or bugs to grow. That's what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to not provide them this perfect home.
Well, it's kind of like tuning the environment to be perfect for your plants and less than ideal for anything else.
It's pretty tough. It is really tough. So you really want to dial it in, man.
All right. And we would kind of be remiss if we were talking about environment and we didn't talk about lighting.
Yeah.
There is a reason that people do care about lights. And I know that a lot of people go out and overkill on their lights. And help me out with why lighting isn't the only thing you should be considering when you're buying lights.
And don't make me use the car analogy. Never seen anybody put too much horsepower in their engine and then the rest of their car couldn't take it. It's just spin the wheels all the time.
Okay.
Anyway, like we were talking about how you're visual. I mean, lights, you buy a light, it's fancy. You can get to show your friends, very cool. The light is the energy. It is the energy that it takes for the plant, that the plant uses to metabolize and to build itself. The plant uses carbon, it uses hydrogen from water, and then it uses some of the nutrients that it's pulling up. It all has to be in balance. So if you have way too much light, and light is measured in ppfd, which is the amount of light photons falling on a specific area. But if you have too much of that energy going on and you don't have enough food. You don't have enough carbon to build itself with, or fertilizer to allow the nutrients to everything to move around and to be constructed. You're wasting your energy. So you just want to make sure with light that you're matching it up to everything else.
And so for PPFD, if I'm just growing in natural ambient CO2 levels,
Sure.
what should my PPFD be at the canopy level?
PPFD is kind of interesting because the total number of raindrops that are falling, I like to say, are droplets of light that are falling on your plant. Well, 18 hours a day of veg time, it's raining for a third more of the time. So when you go to flower, you're certainly going to have to turn your intensity up. I like to say 600 to 900, somewhere around there. And then if you have CO2, then you can dial it up more because your light is the energy. It's going to grab that carbon and make plant material with it. If you run out of carbon because you have no CO2, then you're wasting your light. But you see what I mean? You want to match the amount of light to the amount of carbon that you have.
Yeah, and I saw one time you showed me an example of you can have ambient CO2 and you're going to get as much out of the lights.
Yeah.
But you can crank up those lights, and if you don't crank up the CO2, the extra light does nothing for your plants. But if you do crank up the CO2, all of a sudden it's able to use that extra light energy.
Yes, this light's the energy, and it's there to grab carbon. It's going to take that energy, going to rip carbon off the oxygen, and it's going to grab that carbon and fix it and put it into your plant. Well, if you don't have the energy to do that, then it can't do it. You can have all the carbon you want. It can't remove it and make it into plant material. If you have all this light, you're grasping at straws. You're grasping at nothing, right? You've got all this energy, but there's not enough carbon to pull into to make plant material out of. So yeah, it's definitely a balance.
So if you increase one, you should be increasing the other as well.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And don't forget, you're trying to get these workers to build carbon and build take carbon and build plant material. You better make sure it's a nice environment for them to work in. Got to be a good temperature, got to be a nice humidity. The stomata's got to be open. Everything's got to be working together. Hey, but that is just me. Environment is the first thing that I nailed down. But what about you? What's the most important thing in your grow? Let me know in the comments. And come on, if you like this video, hit the like button, smash the subscribe button, share this one with another grower you know, and check out the other couple videos YouTube's recommended. I sure hope you'll dig them.